My boyfriend of 4 years proposed to me. I was extremely shocked because our relationship has been rocky the past year. As surprising as it is, I still felt overwhelmed with joy and excitement. He seemed thrilled and even had tears in his eyes while asking. I felt so emotional. The person I had loved for 4 years had asked me to marry them. But the thought of the randomness of the proposal couldn't leave my head. I practically slept on separate couches for the past 3 months. It was unsettling and confused me. Fast forward to the day after Valentine's Day and my fiancé breaks down and tells me that he can't marry me. He said it wouldn't be right and he wouldn't be doing it for the right reasons. I was confused and lost and all I could do was question him about why he proposed and make me so happy. Finally, he confessed to me that my parents offered him $100,000 if he would propose to me. My family is decently well off and they promised him that after marriage he would be well taken care of and won't have any struggle. This was something that he said he couldn't turn down, but he felt wrong and sick about living a lie. I went to confront my parents and they claimed it was true, but they only did it for my happiness since it's something they knew I wanted so bad. Am I the asshole for not continuing a relationship with my parents? I'm a senior in high school and I have a stepsister who is the same age as me. My mom and her dad have been married since we were 10. We both started school again yesterday. A couple of hours into my online class, my mom comes to my room to talk to me. She said that since I have more than enough money to put myself through college, how would I feel about sharing some of that money with my stepsister who does not have enough money? I lost my paternal grandparents 3 years after I lost my dad, so I inherited a lump sum of money. My mom and stepdad had saved some money, but a few crappy things happened to our house, so now apparently there's not enough for my stepsister to go to college. But I don't feel responsible to put her through college. I also don't feel like my paternal relative's money that's now mine should be used for her. She was nothing to them, and if we're being real, we have no relationship beyond living in the same house either. I told my mom no. She said she was disappointed in me. Later on that night, my mom and her husband pulled me into the kitchen to discuss some things. They told me I'm being selfish and that she's my sister. I said even if she is my sister, it's not my job to help her through college, and that's my money, and it will not be used for something I do not approve of. Apparently, I'm the asshole for refusing, according to them. So it got me thinking, should I help my stepsister out?
Have you ever felt like you're being watched but didn't know why? For at least this feeling would lead to a terrifying discovery. She had just gone through a really messy breakup and had to move out. She found a studio apartment on the other side of town, but when she got there, she saw a bunch of things were left behind, including books, clothes, and a long mirror propped up against the wall in front of the bed. But when she called the landlord, he said that the previous renter didn't want them anymore, so at least put everything in a bag to deal with later. She decided to keep the mirror though. She went to bed that night and woke up to soft rustling noises. She began to feel uneasy. She looked around and swore that she saw a long shadow move across her room. But maybe it was just the trees. She tried to ignore it, but all through the night she felt a pair of eyes on her. The next day she convinced herself she must have just been feeling anxious because it was her first night living alone. But she went to bed again and couldn't sleep. She heard the same rustling noises, opened her eyes and saw a long shadow was now standing in front of her bed. She turned away for a second to turn the light on, but stumbled, and before she knew it, the shadow was gone. When she woke up, she took the bag of the previous renter's things and decided she didn't want the mirror either. She pushed it out of the way and found behind it was a huge hole that someone had dug to get to her. This is why you should never deliver a letter in person. Once a woman was living in Berlin after World War II. Supplies were tight, money was short, and everyone was hungry. But one day the woman was walking through a crowd when she accidentally bumped into a blind man. They started to talk. The man eventually asked her for a favor, to deliver a letter for him to an address written on the envelope. She agreed. She was about to go deliver this letter when she turned around and saw the blind man running away without his cane. She felt suspicious of this behavior, so she went to the police. The police then decided to visit the address written on the envelope to see if they could find anything. Then they made a shocking discovery. They ended up arresting 3 butchers who had been harvesting human flesh and selling it to the starving people. Then they opened up the envelope to see what was written inside, and it only said one line: "This is the last one I'm sending you today." Have you ever felt like you're being watched by someone or something while being entirely alone? Once there was a hunter who was in the middle of the woods. After a long day of hunting, he had lost his bearings, so he just decided to go one direction until he could find a way out. After a few hours, he found a small cabin. Having no other choice as it was getting really dark, he decided to see if he could stay there for the night. The door was open, no one was inside. He went on the bed and just decided he would apologize and explain himself to the owner of the cabin in the morning. But as he tried to go to sleep, he saw the entire cabin was decorated with portraits, all painted in extreme detail. Their faces weren't normal. They were all twisted, angry, and hateful. These disturbing paintings made him really uncomfortable, but he just tried to ignore them as much as he could and went to sleep. As he woke up the next morning, he got up from the bed and realized that there are no portraits on the walls of the cabin at all. Instead, they were windows. Have you ever eavesdropped on someone else's conversation? For one woman who is a psychiatrist, her eavesdropping on her neighbors would lead to something terrifying. So this woman moved into an apartment and noticed that there was a family of 3 living next to her. They were a married couple in their 60s and their son who was about 30. The son, however, barely left the house, and the psychiatrist would often hear the mother yelling and the couple arguing. Eventually, the son wouldn't leave the house for years, but one day everything changed. The father knocked on the psychiatrist's door looking devastated. He said his family needed her help, so she went with him to their apartment where their mother was waiting. Then the couple led her to their son's room, where the mother banged on the door and said, "We're coming in." The son was still in bed sleeping. Then the mother started yelling, "Are you going to sleep forever, you lazy good for nothing?" and grabbed a golf club and began beating the son sleeping beneath the covers. The psychiatrist was shocked and pulled the mother off of her son. But that was not nearly the most terrifying part. When the psychiatrist tried to check if the son was hurt, she pulled back the covers and saw a mummified corpse. Then the father said, "It's my wife who needs help. This has been going on for years and I can't take it anymore."
My fiancé and I are high school sweethearts, and we've been together for about 12 years. We were engaged for around 3 when he passed away due to an accident in the beginning of 2020. A few weeks ago, his brother came to visit me, and he's planning to propose to his girlfriend. He asked me if he could have the family's engagement ring. The ring my fiancé gave me is a family ring which had been in the family for generations. I have been wearing this ring for almost 3 years, and it's a symbol of our relationship. I don't feel ready to give it up. When I told him this, he got upset and said it's a family ring and it belongs to him now that his brother is dead. I told him to get out. I called his mom to let her know why I wanted to keep the ring. She told me she wouldn't have minded if I had been married to him, but I wasn't, so I'm not part of the family, and therefore I should return the ring. She said I'll move on one day, and it's unfair to hold on to a ring that I will never wear again, especially a ring that belongs to her family for generations. I would have at least considered giving back the ring in a few years. I just can't bear the thought of parting with this ring now. So I told her I'm sorry that she felt that way, but her son gave me this ring and I'm not giving it back. Since then, his mom and his brother have been spamming my phone with messages and calls about how I'm trying to steal their family ring. So am I wrong for wanting to keep...
This is the reason I will never be going to my grandparents' house again. I was alone in the house one day and wanted a blanket from my aunt's closet. I was hesitant, as in my aunt's room there was a 2-foot tall Victorian-style doll that was converted into a lamp, and it stared at you as you walked in, with its creepy smile. It could only be turned on by holding its hand and raising and lowering the arm. Luckily for me, it was mid-afternoon and I wouldn't be needing the lamp's light, and that the closet was located right next to the door's entrance. So without lifting my gaze, I stared at the floor, entered the room and turned to the closet with my back towards the doll. I quickly swung open the closet door and reached down for the blanket, when suddenly something about the room was different. Brighter, the light was on. I froze for an eternity, then felt my survival instincts kick in, and wanted to run screaming in horror. But before that I still had to look. Man, I wish I hadn't looked. As I turned to exit the room, I lifted my soothed head only to confirm that the doll's hand was raised, and that it was pointed directly at me.
I was never the type that believed in ghosts. I thought that stories of haunted houses, spirits, and supernatural were just that, stories. That changed when my mom and I moved into a new house in Chicago. I started to notice small things at first. Lights turning on and off, strange noises in the middle of the night, and doors creaking open randomly, all which can be blamed on the house being old. But every night, I would hear the same noise on my bedroom door, followed by the door slowly creaking open. The first few times, I blamed the old door and the aged hinges, but it kept happening and the knocks kept getting louder and louder. One night, I decided to move my small nightstand in front of the door on the inside of the room, so it couldn't be pushed open easily. Whatever was knocking on my door didn't like this. The taps that night turned into violent bangs. I screamed for my mom to come and she came rushing into the room, knocking over my nightstand in front of the door. When I told her what was going on, I thought she'd call me crazy, but she just stared at me silently with a shocked look on her face. That's when she told me that she's been hearing the same noises coming from my door, but she didn't want to scare me. What happened next still freaks me out to this day.